Hello and welcome to the Winning Cultures webcast with Chaz Kelly and myself. I'm Kelly Kleiman. At least the last time I checked in the mirror, I was. Your humble host at hand. Today's guest is a fellow you may very well know because you've seen him on LinkedIn and other social media platforms espousing the importance of selecting and dealing with the right vendor for your dealership, or selecting and dealing with some of the finer eateries in Connecticut. Now, our discussion...
In the country.
What's that?
Just in the country, actually.
In the country. Okay.
Just
all
want
right.
to make sure.
Expansive, and it's important that we know that. We do want to get into that at some point. In fact, we are going to do a separate podcast on that. But our conversation today is strictly automotive and actually covers an absolutely critical aspect of running a dealership regarding vetting, flushing, and dealing with the right vendor for your car dealership. Our guest is Paul Meijer of DealerVendorMatch.com. Vendors, dealerships, decision makers, start paying attention now. How you doing, Paul?
I'm doing great. Thanks a lot for having me on the show. I've been looking forward to this.
I might have to edit out a whole bunch of stuff on that intro, but in the meantime, why don't you just go ahead and break down the concept for DealerVendorMatch.com? What gave the idea to build it out, and why is a site like this important for both dealers and vendors alike?
All right, that's a lot to unpack, but let's start with the first part of the luggage. For years, customers have been asking for a better way to buy cars. And while a couple of stores listened to those cries and actually responded and have done very well for themselves with it, the majority have not. Just as in relationships, we've evolved. Back in the day, you used to go to a bar to meet your significant other or a club. Now it seems that we're always working. There's such a limit on time that I met my wife on a dating site, as have a lot of people that I know met their significant others on dating sites. Why? Because they're too busy. Nobody has time to go spend a few hours to hang out at a club. And it's the same thing in business today. There's so many vendors that come through the door that they don't have time or the bandwidth to talk to all of them. So I figured, I met my wife on the dating site. I was able to create a profile, set my preferences, and do a specific search for exactly who I was looking for, when and how I was looking for her. And when I found her, the one, I was able to reach out, initiate contact, started to banter back and forth. And here I am. I'm about to celebrate my 10-year wedding anniversary. All because it was so easy and transparent online to find exactly what I want. As the dealership, vendors come in by the 100. I mean, I challenge you sometimes. Just go to a dealership, stand in the corner, and you can spot the vendor walking in. Each and every one. We may think we look different, we sound different, but to the dealers, we're all the same, and they can spot them a mile away. So we're all familiar with, oh, did you have an appointment? Well, if you have some stuff you want to leave behind, they'll call you. Now, Kelly, when does that callback typically come?
Does it?
The 5th of never. That's when that callback comes. You've been dismissed. Or even better yet, when you call and you go into the voicemail that nobody monitors, or you get the email address that goes nowhere. It's very frustrating. So by giving dealers a place where they can, at no charge, browse for the types of technologies and vendors they want on their terms, if they like what they see, or they see somebody that provides value and actually addressing a problem that they're experiencing, they can simply click the call or click the email and initiate contact with that vendor. Too many times a vendor will come in and they're all excited and jacked about their product, and they start the information dump without even knowing if that dealer has a problem. So the wall goes up immediately and they're out, but yet they repeat this cycle month after month after month. I'd say the average company probably spends $150,000 or more to put a rep on the road that travels for business Monday through Friday between the company car, salary, benefits, bonuses, hotels, meals, all that. Easily $150,000 they spend to have the person go back time after time after time. You make an appointment, you think you're good, you get there after driving an hour and a half, only to find out, oh man, that guy's here again. Hey, listen, Kelly, I'm terribly sorry, but the factory just showed up and I'm not going to be able to meet with you. I'm not blowing you off. So can you come back next month? Wow, I didn't get blown off. I'm going back in next month. And next month you show up. You drive that same hour and a half to get there. Oh, there's that guy again. Hey, listen, I hate to do this to you. I'm really sorry, but I have a problem customer that just came into my office, so I can't meet with you today. Can you come back? Wow. And the cycle just goes on and on and on. But this makes it easier for them to be able to find what they need, the way they need it, when they need it.
Well, with a dating site, of course, you can vet your potential partner. So the question that makes sense in this instance is, how do you vet the vendors that end up on the site?
Well, here's the beauty of it, right? I'm going into my 43rd year in the automotive space. I started as a trainee technician, quickly got promoted up through the ranks to become shop foreman, service manager, and store manager. I've run several shops in the aftermarket and have been nationally recognized for customer service excellence in that space. I've also developed an extensive LinkedIn profile where I have a great network of professionals in the automotive space. You know, I'm not one of these vanity type LinkedIn users. Okay. A lot of people will accept everybody that connects with them, whether or not there's any relevance whatsoever. I'm very selective. I'm in the automotive space, so I want to make sure that the people I connect with, either I can add value to them or they can add value to me. And the beauty of having been in the automotive space so long, you know, I've worked in stores. I've had successful eBay stores where I shipped cars across the country, overseas. You know, 25 years ago, before it was fashionable, we were doing online business. We were having people fly in with one-way airline tickets, driving one-way rental cars to the dealership to pick up their cars. We were shipping cars via FedEx envelopes, right? We would send out the paperwork. It would have to be notarized and either funds wired into us or certified funds. And once the funds were verified as received on our end, then I can sign the transporter. So you learn a couple of things over the years being in the business. And what I learned quickly is that when you have a conversation with somebody about a particular area in the automotive space, you can't bluff your way through it. You can't fake experience. You can tell pretty much right away whether or somebody has the experience and or knows what they're talking about. It's not that hard. That's why, you know, I laugh when so many stores won't even take the 2 minutes to speak with a vendor that comes in. Because you should be able to tell from your experience within the first few sentences whether or not that person adds value or knows what they're talking about. Because a lot of them don't, let's be honest. So, you know, between having experience in the business, having a network of automotive professionals that I consult with on a regular basis, I'm able to learn when somebody contacts us, is this really a good fit? Are they really going to be able to add value to the dealers? Because if they're not, there are people I've said no to.
Well, before Chaz jumps on, I just want to ask you, because this is another part of that equation, what kind of guidance or would you provide, or would you provide a dealership or a vendor that helps that dealership select the right vendor? There's got to be a checklist. So when the vendor gets into the dealership, they know what the checklist looks like. And the dealership also knows what that checklist looks like, and all the boxes get marked.
All right. This is a very simple thing. Here's where a lot of people struggle. As I said, you walk into the store, you try to reach the right person, and more often than not, you can't. But if you're fortunate enough to get in front of the key decision maker, you have 30 to 60 seconds to craft an elevator pitch, which is going to result in one of two things happening. Either they hear something that resonates with them as a pain point that they're currently experiencing, and so that tells them you not only understand their problem, but you probably have the ability to help them solve it. That's when they say to you, hey, Kelly, I've got a couple of minutes. Come on into my office. Now you just struck gold, because in those few minutes, you can establish rapport, do a little bit more discovery, and set next steps appointments. Okay, so it's critical, and this is for both parties. It's critical for the vendor to be able to understand. You've got to do your research ahead of time to know that there's a problem. And I'll give you an example of that in just a second. To know that there's a problem, go in and just kind of hit what the solution is to that problem. The dealers, they're too busy. They get bombarded. They don't want to sit through yet another dog and pony show. They don't want yet another person that last week was working at Kinko's and this week works for this giant automotive vendor company, right? No disrespect against Kinko's, but the reality is we just don't have the time, and the dealers don't have the time to, these guys a lot of them are very honest. Hey, I don't understand your business, but I'm willing to learn. They're not there to provide schooling. They've got a business to run. And especially now where they have less people running that business, their time is even more valuable. So the dealers, on their end, they recognize when the vendor brings value and understands their business. And from the vendor side, you need to make damn sure before you even walk into that store that you know exactly how they're doing compared to what the rest of the market's doing, what their pain points are, and what their competition is.
I love that. That's amazing. And Kelly, what a great question. And that's an excellent answer, because how often do we hear about vendors who don't walk in with the right material to get in front, A, to get in front of that decision maker, and then B, once you get the opportunity, more often there are no's than there are yeses, because we're not prepared for that opportunity. So I kind of want to capitalize on that, because I think that's a rabbit hole that we need to go down for the sake of anybody who watches this, whether it be educational for them or something. Maybe we can uncover something that maybe other vendors out there haven't tried. So on top of that, the elevator pitch you speak of, and being able to, one of the things we do at Car Motivators is, like you said, the information dump, right? That happens a lot. We try our best to make the agenda their agenda, right? Yeah. So my question for you to start is, what are some other essential elements of a great vendor? Like, what is going to captivate the eyes of dealer principals outside of just something that they hear that just might resonate with? What are some other things that you may offer to the table, or you would consider in your expertise?
Well, knowing that there's a specific place where they can go with total transparency. All right. Nobody wants to be hounded and bombarded. Excuse me. There are some websites that you go on. The minute you click on anything, your phone blows up, and it's the companies calling you. Hey, I saw you were just on our website. When can you come in? Well, if I wanted to finish
my last name yet.
Right. If I wanted to come in, I would have just shown up, but I want to do my research first. Or they just blow you up with email after email. I have one company that wanted to do business with us, and I didn't unsubscribe from them because I just want to see how far can they actually go. Here's a person that contacted me, asked me for time. I scheduled time. Just shortly before the meeting, I get a notification. I'm terribly sorry, but something's come up. I need to reschedule. All right, it's the car business. I get it. So I look at my schedule, I reschedule. Shortly before that next meeting, I get an email. I'm sorry, something's come up. We need to reschedule. My response was, I appreciate life is busy for you, but clearly we're not a good fit, because here I've taken 2 dates, marked them on the calendar to spend time with you because you wanted to find out more about us. And it's not important enough for you to honor that commitment. So I think I'm going to pass on any further communication with you. And then what happens is they shift you into the spam bucket. So now every day I get a different piece of spam from this company promoting products that that bring no value to me. I'm not a dealership, so I don't really care about what they do with inventory. They couldn't honor and respect the time to have a conversation to find out how we can benefit each other. So, that's kind of one of the examples about how you vet them.
Well, it's funny how you talk about almost like the reputation management of, once you get a fish on the hook and then you do nothing with the fish, right? What does that do for the dealer? Well, they don't want to talk to that person anymore. Kelly is really great at this, and he can chime in if he wishes, but want to ask you a question because we live in the digital age, right? So now a lot of that one-on-one, maybe that phone conversation that used to happen, dealers are already like with your business, they're already vetting people online, right? So talk to me about this. How critical is it for a vendor to establish itself online, like in the form of, SEO, search engine visibility and reputation management? Or, in other words, how important is a business to make sure that they are visible in a positive perspective when that dealer goes shopping?
It's critical, absolutely critical. Most people today don't put themselves out there for whatever reason. But you have to remember, everybody's always watching. They may not comment, they may not interact with the post publicly, but rest assured they're watching. Sometimes you'll see the dealer or a company will check out your LinkedIn profile to see what you're all about. It's important to put out content to kind of brand yourself out there.
Oh, absolutely.
And the mistake that a lot of people make is, everybody's a podcaster today. They all of a sudden become the next podcast sensation. They buy the microphone, they buy the camera, and all this crap to start something and then not finish it. So they'll start all gung-ho for a while, and then they'll disappear. And then a few months later, they'll come back. Hey, it's me again. You haven't seen me in a while. Some stuff's come up, but I'm back now. And then when they come back for that second time, they put on maybe 2-3 episodes maximum, and then they're gone for good. And then you're on to the next cycle. So you got to put out content. You need to be consistent. But when I say consistent and putting out content, that doesn't mean just blowing up the airwaves with filler content. Right. There are people that talk a lot, but say nothing. You need to put out good content. Look, content's hard to come up with. If you don't have it for that day or those 2 or 3 days, don't put it out. But to put something out just for the sake of putting it out, I don't feel that's necessarily a good thing. And there are probably many that would disagree with that. But I think that if you put out regular content and you give back to the community, which has been good to you, people will start to notice. The whole concept of everybody's always watching is one that came later on for me. I'm going into the third year of my Paul Meijer Sunday Night Live show on LinkedIn. And I have a lot of people that always reach out to connect. And I thank them and I say, how did you hear about me? Have you seen my show? And I'll hear from them, I haven't seen your show, but my friend or my boss or my coworker watches your show all the time. I said, really? Well, who's that? Find out who that is. Sure enough, you go look on LinkedIn and you connected a while ago, sometimes 2-3 years ago, but have never seen any kind of interaction online, yet that person's always watching. And when you pick up the phone and you have a conversation with somebody who you've been in tandem on LinkedIn with or in the social media space, and they quote something that you said a few years ago, well, that tells you if they know that, they've been watching you since a few years ago. So that's why good content and consistency is key. If you don't have something good, skip that day.
Absolutely. That's
Consistency is
so good.
Yeah, thanks for asking that question, Chaz. It was a good one. And consistency is crucial because there you have credibility, and then credibility, you have trust, and before you know it, you're in business. And let's talk about getting in business. So let's say we're the dealership that just brought in a vendor. They've had that vendor for some time, and performance is obviously extremely important, right? So
Yeah.
and I've noticed that many vendors tend to cherry pick their reporting to show only really good numbers. And that would be like impression counts versus call counts. We know the call counts are more important, but suddenly they're not showing the call counts. But look at all these impressions that we got. So why is it crucial that a dealer does understand the reports he gets and which metrics are the most important? And how do you guide a dealer accordingly? What do they know how do they even know what they're looking at?
Well, this is kind of the yin yang of the dealer vendor relationship. And it's always been this way, and it will always be this way. So the vendor is predisposed to feel really good about their data. And I've had performance managers all pumped up and excited about their data. And I said, okay, we'll just slow down a little bit. Yes, this looks good to us, but we're not stroking the check. It has to look good to the customer. If it doesn't look good to the customer, it doesn't matter what we think. It matters what they think. The dealers, on the other hand, a lot of them are predisposed to think that it's all them. Okay? No matter who the vendor or the company brings into them, in many cases, the dealer was ready to dismiss. Oh yeah, that was my customer anyway. Oh yeah, no, they bought a car from us. You didn't bring that in. Well, it's funny because yes, they bought a car from you 8 years ago. They haven't been in your shop for several years. However, after we sent them a few communications, here are the dates and times. It turns out that Mr. and Mrs. Jones came in, they traded in the car they bought from you, VIN number, JM3, whatever, and they bought another car. Here's the VIN number and the delivery date on that. Here's what they spent on that. They're your customers. You've never communicated with them. They haven't been in years. However, after we sent the marketing material, here are the dates and times and the RO numbers and the dollar amounts that they spent. So it's critical that both sides have an open, an open mind about this. As the dealer, you can't dismiss everybody that comes in as they're already your customers, so they were going to come in anyway. Because if I walk into 100 stores and I ask them, hey, what's your service retention? What's your sales retention? The service retention, they're going to say they're number one in their district, in their country, in their planet. Every one of them will do that. Well, that kind of makes me wonder who's number two, number three, up to number 1,500, right? If everybody's number one. There's a reason 7 in 10 customers don't go back to the dealer for service, right? And the 3 that do, if you filter out warranty requirements and things like that, that number might get a little bit more pale. If you talk to sales, our retention, man, we're number one in our district, number one in the country, number one on the planet. Oh, we've got an 80+% retention rate. Yet when I've worked with large companies that deployed their software into the DMS, you come to find out best case scenario, it's maybe a 20% retention rate. And that was BC before COVID.
Before COVID, yeah.
Now there's no loyalty as far as that's concerned. I have no problem buying my car from Joe Blow across the country who's going to ship it to me. If it's a new car, I don't have to worry about it. If it's a pre-owned car, I've got Carfax, I've got pictures. When I sold cars on eBay, whatever blemish there was, I had a big 8x10 picture of it so that they could see I'm a reputable company to do business with. Here are the blemishes. This is everything. And they feel confident. There are people that have wired large sums of money across the country to have trucks drop off used cars to their driveways 25 years ago, based on trust and transparency. So as far as the reporting, we need to both keep an open mind, because somewhere in the middle is where everybody's going to feel comfortable.
I love that you mentioned that there can't be a 1,500 way tie for first. The consumer does not benefit from that at all.
No.
But kind of shifted gears. So obviously, you know, it's no one's guess or anyone's assumption that obviously the automotive industry has turned on its head in the past 2 to 3 years because of COVID and all that jazz. I want to kind of go back to the basics just a little bit and ask you a question in regards to something you had mentioned earlier. And the answer can't be that they have to go to dealer vendor bash, because I feel like that's going to be the first thing that you think. But because the truth is that is probably the answer. But in the traditional sense, getting in front of a dealership decision maker for any vendor has always been the most difficult task. It's always been the biggest feat. It's almost like the first step into a cold pool, right? You can't tiptoe in, you kind of have to jump in. Why is that so? Like, from your perspective, I know that your business is connecting these folks in a much more professional way per needs and such. But why has that always been such a feat?
Well, for one, the dealers don't think they need you. I mean, that's the biggest thing right there. And especially since COVID, they even less feel that they need you. So to have all these people come in to pitch the products that they don't even know if the dealer needs, the dealers have kind of had it up to here with that. They don't need yet another person coming in to pitch them something that is of no relevance to their business. So it's always been that way. But I would say the last couple of years, it's gotten even worse, because now when you have an economy where, and there's still people that don't accept this to be the fact, where it's an artificial economy. We've never seen it in all my years in the car business, and probably everybody who's going to hear this or watch it, nobody's ever seen this in the car business, where you have so many more buyers than product. So if you didn't think they felt they didn't need you before, they definitely feel that they don't need you now. So the key thing is you need to continually be in front of them so they understand that you really do know their business and you speak their language, so that when the time comes that things change and we go back to a world BC where inventory carrying costs are choking us, and there's not enough people coming through the door, when those complaints come back, and they will, it's a question of time, nobody can throw a dart and say exactly what date that's going to happen. But anybody that's looked at data and that understands data will agree that this market cannot go on indefinitely. It just can't.
Absolutely.
Are you seeing a trend of vendor consolidation whereby some of the larger companies are now trying to offer functions that smaller indie vendors were probably better suited for, with some, I'll call it half-baked software? In other words, a company's kind of trying to be soup to nuts, where they're best served serving soup, pun intended, because of your affiliation with the fine eateries of the United States of America.
No soup for you.
He thinks he's funny.
Yeah.
Well, here's the thing.
Mhm.
It's not just big companies. It's also smaller companies. It's companies across the spectrum. Everybody's trying to be everything to everyone. And the reality is they're just not. We have larger companies that are adding things to their service offerings that, they say this is what they do. But when you dig further, you find out, wait a minute, what do you mean you don't do this? You said this is what you do. Well, we're just starting with this. So I don't really have the data on that yet. Well, that's kind of good to know. So that's one example on a bigger company. On a smaller company, you've got all these companies that are continually trying to find their way and reinvent themselves. It seems like every other week, they've got some blockbuster announcement on some new thing they're coming out with, which when you hear it, it's not necessarily some big blockbuster announcement. And then only a few weeks later to hear yet another great blockbuster announcement that turns out to not really be another big blockbuster announcement. So yes, it's not just big companies, it's small companies as well. There are things that one does well, and those are the things that one needs to focus on. There's enough business to go around for everybody. The rule of the day is don't try to be everything to everybody, because then you end up being nothing to everybody.
Let me follow up real quick, Chaz, on that one.
Sure,
You talked about the effect that COVID had on the car business, but it's been a struggle for vendors too. Would you like to make a comment on that, Paul?
Oh yeah, because what they don't understand at the store level is vendors not just going to come in for their health. Okay. And before we as vendors walk into a store, we've done the research. We have the information. Doesn't mean that the dealer is going to listen. All right. I had a beautiful story where I called on this particular store. And before going in, I do my quick research, basic stuff. You don't need to have a PhD in microbiology to do quick dealer research to see where the pain points are. But I discovered a syndication issue at the store. So they had vehicles that were priced, in some cases, $6,000 more expensive on the third-party sites than on their dealer sites. And I would say to the dealer, I'd say, hey, listen, let's stock number XYZ39B. How long has that been on your lot? It's about to celebrate a birthday. All right. I'm sure there's probably a good reason for this, but I noticed there was a $6,000 higher price on this particular third-party site that just about everybody uses compared to the lower price on your website. Do you think that would hamper sales any? Well, no, because when they get to my website, they're going to see the cheaper price and they're just going to come in and buy it. Yeah, but you're sitting on this car. This car's about to celebrate a birthday. We're about to light the candles on this baby.
Yeah.
And I noticed this. You think there might be a problem? No. They weren't ready to spend $900 on a software product that would fix that syndication issue once and for all and do many more things. So it's not ready to spend it. No problem. They corrected the pricing. And guess what happened to that car?
Sold.
It's sold
immediately. Yeah.
So now I'm not one to hound somebody. So I schedule my next visit for 3 months later. Prior to going in to meet with the GM, I do another simple research. I see that same problem with syndication still exists. I go in, same spiel. Hey, stock number, how long has it been here? Well, that one's about to celebrate a birthday also. Still weren't ready to spend the money on the software that could fix that problem. They corrected the pricing. Guess what happened to that car? Sold. So my next follow-up meeting was scheduled for a year later. You know why a year later? What notes I put in my CRM?
We're all ears.
Go see the new owner. That was in my notes. And when I went back a year later,
wow,
guess what? There was a new ownership at the store. So when you do the same thing for many years, you kind of get a feel for what the lay of the land is. And you kind of can judge based on conversations that you have in very few sentences where you're going and whether or not they're going to make it.
Yeah,
Does
you
that
know,
answer your question?
Absolutely. Yeah. I think, yeah. It's almost like as is sometimes the dealers don't realize it, but they need to get out of the way of their own success. But how are they ever going to figure it out if they only let certain people through the door and certain people not? But that's the important mission that you've been on with Dealer Vendor Match. And so being so well versed and being able to match the dealers to vendors, you know, we were talking about larger conglomerate service providers, and then we were talking about small vendors, right? Specialized vendors. So in your experience and just in your tutelage, expertise. How can a small vendor in this market best compete with a conglomerate service provider, the ones that are trying to tack on all the extra stuff that you were speaking on earlier?
Well, the beauty of the internet today is that it's kind of leveled the playing field. As a small operator, you have the same power, if not more, online to create quality content than what some of the larger companies have. All right. We have several businesses that we run out of our home, and we took one of those businesses online. And while other brick and mortars around us are going out of business left and right, I've counted 5 or 6 in the last 6 years that have gone by the wayside. Our business gets stronger every year. We now export worldwide. We ship to New Zealand, Australia, UK, the Netherlands, Canada. We just had our first shipment to Ecuador. We have fans in Chile. We do a weekly show on Facebook that attracts an audience from around the world. So the smaller company has the same opportunity as the larger company. Maybe they don't have the technology team to put on an epic Cecil B. DeMille type production, but in today's world, that doesn't matter as much. What they want to know is, are you real? Are you sincere? And can you help me? What's in it for me is the driver of the day. If you can establish trust through regular communication, through online content to promote yourself and your business, that you are a trusted advisor that they can count on when they need you, then you can win the order as quickly as a giant company.
Yeah, I think sadly, though, with COVID out there and sales just out of control, I think a lot of vendors have just fallen by the wayside because the lack of business. At some point, maybe accounts receivables were too overwhelming. You know, it's been a challenging situation to say the least. Appreciate the answer. Let's play word association. I think this is the most fun of everything that we could possibly do here, because now we know who your favorites are because they're the first that come to mind. So I'm going to mention a category, and you mention the first vendor that comes to mind. Okay? Here we go.
Oh, hold on a second. There might be 2 that go hand in hand.
Okay, then you could mention one and mention the other.
Okay.
The Conglomerate. Okay, here we go. Fixed Stops.
Fixed Stops Digital and Recall Masters.
Okay. DMS.
CDK.
Okay. CRM.
Salesforce.
Coaching.
Sean Kelly, hashtag the Car Biz Coach.
Loaded, Jazz, right?
Yeah.
Here's one. Reputation management.
Dominion Prime.
Interesting. Very competitive field. Website provider.
Dealer Inspire.
F&I.
2 come to mind. Elite FI, because this guy puts out the content like nobody's business. And your dealer experience with Steve Apicella, who ties everybody's F&I products together into one neat little agnostic bundle.
We have him booked, actually. Reed Richards is going to be doing that podcast. Okay, I've got one more that I'm going to throw out there. Okay, last one. Car listing sites, classifieds, however you want to call them. Number 1.
Cars.com.
There you go. Chaz, anything else? We're right near the end. We're in the 9th inning.
I got to tell you, for anybody watching and listening, it's just such an honor to have Paul on today. And if you're a vendor or you're a dealer out there that is looking to find the right matches, that you have some things you need to get done, and you're not sure who to talk to or who to even call, you got to go to dealervendorematch.com and see our friend Paul. He's obviously incredibly well-versed he's been in the market for years. He's an expert and a coach in his own right, and he's done something remarkable for the dealers and the vendors out there to connect.
Paul Meijer, everyone's favorite foodie, commercial actor, and vendor consultant. Where can you be reached?
203-257-4727 or dealervendormatch@gmail.com. Or if you're on mobile, You can either click the call, the customer service line rings right to my cell phone, or you flip the phone sideways. We have a messenger app that's tied in if you prefer messenger, or the contact us is right smack dab in the middle of the home page, or click the email.
Fantastic. Thanks for joining us on the Car Motivators Winning Culture webcast.
Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it.